Hi, welcome to the episode that we're going to talk about black and white film and the filters that you need and the ones that are the most important for your camera bag. And I'd say if you're going to shoot landscape and if you're going to, be serious about your black and white, chances are you're going to end up having to use filters. Okay, so black and white film is panchromatic, which means that it sees the colors the way our eyes sees it, but it turns it to black and white. There was orthochromatic at the beginning of the century that didn't have a blue layer, but now they've removed that and now we can see in all colors in black and white. So now when you want your reds and if you need your trees to glow and if you need your clouds to pop out white and have a real difference between the background and the foreground, you want some different filters and they'll help you achieve what you want to do. Ansel Adams was a firm believer in black and white filters, and so was Edward Weston, and they're definitely part of your arsenal if you're going to have a good camera bag. And it doesn't have to be really expensive because most of these you can find used at any old camera store, and they have probably rolls of them, and you can still find some for pretty cheap, and they'll help you definitely get some better photography happening. So here on the light box I have some of the filters that are my favorites for black and white photography. So the green is into itself. So basically the idea of color filters in black and white works in a negative way, which means if you use a green filter, it will make everything that is green go lighter. So if you're photographing a tree in the summertime in black and white, you know how the foliage can get really dark if you're photographing a huge forest, if you're in the jungle or whatever. If you use a green filter, there will be this nice glow into all the things that are green. It will make them lighter than the opposite. So all of a sudden the leaves will be sort of, not completely white, but it will be much lighter against a dark branch as opposed to dark foliage on a dark branch, which always kind of renders not so well. That's why Ansel Adams really liked the green filter. So the green filter is mostly for green foliage, also great for portraits. Everybody has a bit of green in their face. Everybody has a bit of a greenish tone, especially me. I'm got some Italian background. I do know I have an olive tone. And when you use a green filter, it has a tendency to just clean up the skin and make you look just a little better than you used to. Then we've got the yellow filter. The yellow filter is interesting because it will play mostly in the blues. So if you want to shoot a wide landscape, it will help, especially those western landscapes where, there's hay on the ground and you're doing these infinity shots or canyons. So it will make everything a little bit brighter on the yellow sense. And of course, because it's yellow, it also plays with the blues. So all of a sudden your skies get darker. So your blues become darker. So you got a really nice definition between, the yellows on the ground and the gold and the mountainside. It's a perfect landscape filter, really. If you don't want to have a huge dramatic contrast gain, because of course all the filters will give you a different kind of contrast feel to the image. And yellow is probably the softest you're going to have. So in the contrast kind of drama scale, yellow is on the low side. And then we have orange, and I really like orange, so here I have two of a very different shade from one to the other. Every company, filter companies, will have variants in terms of dyes that they use or in terms of glass that they use in the yellows. So the oranges will give you a really high contrast. It will definitely, make a real dramatic dark sky, really white clouds pop out. For buildings, for architecture, you get a really nice contrast between the darks and the light. So it really helps you, and you're still in control of all of those things. And the next step is the red filter, and the red filter is, I'm putting them almost in the same category because they will be really dramatic. Your lips, because your lips will get lighter, but everything will get darker. If you want the film noir look of French photography, I'll say, you know what, use a red filter. I've used the red filter intensely in my life, and I really like what it does to photography. Sometimes it's overly dramatic, and when it's overly dramatic, it doesn't always work. But on the, you know, if you want things to just have an inherent contrast in between all the light and the dark, you know, the red filter really comes in handy. And you know, for film like SFX 200 Ilford, which is semi-infrared film, all of a sudden when you're using a red filter like this, you're actually going into nanometers of the film where it's almost infrared. So if you really want something special and something that can have a glow to itself, use SFX Ilford SFX 200 and use a deep red filter. You can use even a deeper, you know, all the reds come in different shade. And you know, you will actually almost achieve perfect infrared on a hot summer day. If you're photographing a forest, the foliage will actually go white and the skies will actually go black and the clouds will go perfectly white. It's pretty dramatic. Now with this red filter, it wouldn't be that dramatic, but you'd definitely see it compared to a regular film. But if you use a deep infrared red, which is basically like this but almost opaque, that basically only the infrared runs through it, then you will definitely, even with SFX 200, have like almost true infrared look and feel. So most of the filters that I'm presenting you like this are thread filters that you just mount onto the lens, and then you're stuck with the diameter size. So I'll usually say buy to the largest lens and the one you use the most, and you can use a step-up ring for all your other lenses, so you can use your main set of filters, so you don't have a collection of filters every time you travel around. Now, you know, those were the colored filters for black and white, and there's a secret in the trade that I really love is the polarizer. The polarizer works for color, for black and white, for slide film. It works for everything. It's phenomenal. But what it does is it's a linear polarizer, so it's two lenses that have invisible strain, like strings going one way to the other. And when you turn it, what you can do is it cuts out the glare at a certain angle. It will cut out the glare, so it works really well also for landscape, because then, you know, it cuts out the humidity, everything gets sharper, and you can see further with it. And if you have, you know, the right angle in the sky, it really darkens the sky beautifully, makes the white even better, and all of this can carry into black and white also. It will have the same effect as a red or an orange filter on the skies, which is absolutely stunning, and it will just keep your shadow detail open, and it will keep your other grays open. So the polarizer is a very interesting one. And when you're shooting a lot of shop windows, and I like to do street photography, and there's always reflections and people sitting in cafes that I like to photograph, well, then I use a polarizer filter to control how much reflection you want in the glass. And you can actually make them all disappear or bring them back. So there's also these other filters that I have here, which are called Cocken filters, and they're square. Now they come in two sizes. This is the smaller one, this is the largest one here, and they're basically a drawer set that you put at the end of your lenses. So you can have one drawer set for all of your lenses and just literally slip them in front of the lens and shoot through them. One issue with these is they're resin filters, and they do scratch, so you have to be extremely careful with them, otherwise it will affect your quality of image. At the end, it's like putting a bad plastic in front of a really expensive lens. It doesn't actually make a lot of sense. So here I have this is actually a special filter. It's not that important for you to know about it, but when we were talking about a polarizer that is gray, this one is a red polarizer, but I'm going to show it to you because when I'm going to turn this, you're going to see the gray filter become red, and then you'll see what I mean by when you turn the polarizing filter, what happens is you're cutting off the reflection and you're adding not a grayness, but you're actually adding element to it. So I'm gonna put this in front of the lens and I'm gonna turn it, and you're gonna see, of all the filters on the table, the gray one will become red.